This is Helen reporting for BBC Schools Report from Melbourne Village College. We have secured an exclusive interview with Andrew Lansley, the Health Minister, who is also our MP in South Cambridgeshire. He is in the news a great deal at the moment, discussing the health bill that he is trying to get through Parliament. We wanted to get the story about the man behind the minister.
What inspired you to get into politics?
Well, of course, I didn't really think I'd be a politician. When I was at school, I was very interested in current affairs and government, and I became a civil servant originally. So I sort of thought I would be involved in government, but not as a politician, as somebody working in government. But then I reached that stage, and it's about 25 years ago now, when I was a civil servant. I was working directly for a minister, and I sort of reached that stage of saying, well, you know, in years to come, do I really want to be the person who advises? Or do I have my own views, and do I feel strongly about this, and do I want to be making the decisions, because do I want to be putting my views forward and trying to really to take responsibility for the decisions rather than simply advising about them. And I concluded actually I did feel strongly, and I did make it. I couldn't just work for any government. You know, I wanted to be part of something which I really believed in.
Do you have any political heroes?
Well, yeah, I do have a few. I mean, Margaret Thatcher is pretty much a heroine, really. I mean, it is fantastic, because I did work for her. I was director of research when she was Prime Minister, for the last year that she was Prime Minister. Even if you didn't agree with her, you could see how she had a view of about how the world worked and how you could change things and how you could make things happen. So almost any issue you presented to her, you could see how she was responding to it. In terms of politics, that's pretty important. It's about bringing your ideas, and she was very much an ideas person.
How did you get to a senior position in Parliament?
In a way, there's a degree of chance about many of these things. There's a whole string of us who all arrived together in 1997. So in a sense, we'd had 13 years in opposition, and to that extent, I suppose we had more opportunity than would often be the case, because the party was in opposition. There weren't that many new members of Parliament. We had the opportunity quite quickly to be spokespeople for our party, and I did that quite quickly. We fought our way through opposition. We made our names in opposition. We were, in my particular instance, of course, particularly fortunate that you know, I had been able really to be health spokesman for over 6 years. So to that extent, I had really set out for the Conservative Party what it was we were doing and what we were trying to achieve.
What qualities do you think you need to become an MP?
Resilience is pretty important, because it's a tough life. I mean, I would just say it's not something I think people should think about as doing as a sort of career choice for this, just because they think they're somehow going to benefit from it, because frankly you don't. I mean, it's tough on the family. You know, there's lots of professions that are better paid. You know, that's not what it's about. It's because that's what's in you. The starting point is this your vocation? And if it isn't, I wouldn't recommend it.
What are your best or worst moments?
Well, best moments, I'm kind of hoping are still to come. I mean, in the political sense, I suppose my best moment was April 1992. I was responsible for a large part of the Conservative Party's general election campaign. Everybody said we were going to lose, and we won. And actually, technically, if you look at kind of how well we did, I mean, John Major, Prime Minister at that moment, people said he was going to lose, but actually he got the largest vote for the Conservative Party, I think, in post-war history. You know, another best moment, of course, is joining the government cabinet just after this last election. Worst moment, actually, it's a funny thing, because it actually was the 1997 election, because although I got elected to Parliament for the first time, I knew all these literally dozens of friends who were fighting the election, and I knew how much their own effort and energy they had put into it, same as I had here in Cambridgeshire. You know, we had all worked for years, and I knew that there were all these of my friends who were just seeing their career being kind of trashed at the moment, you know.
Yeah.
It's quite hard, that. Because in a sense, I don't know, it might be your feeling as well, in a way, the worst things in life are somehow not the things that happen to you exactly, but the things that happen to other people.
Right now, what's your main thing you're trying to achieve?
I'm essentially trying to do three things. One, get the National Health Service to a place where we have literally amongst the best results for patients pretty much anywhere in the world, which is possible. We're not quite there yet. We've got things to do, but I think we can. Secondly, I need to arrive at a place where when people are, particularly when they are older or they're particularly frail and vulnerable, we have a system of care and support for them that they know they can rely upon, and in particular that they don't feel that either they're abandoned or unsafe, or that in order to get access to care, everything they've worked for in their lives, they has to be spent and lost to them, that they don't have nothing left. Then the third thing is, and this is in a way is the real ambition of all, the most important and most difficult, is getting to a place where we have better underlying health in the population as a whole. And that is about things like people living in, people stopping smoking, it's about people having a good healthy weight, it's about people having decent physical activity, leading healthy lives, and creating the environment around people that helps to keep them healthy. And that's tough, because actually if you look over the last 20, 30 years, we've sort of built up this, these problems of people who drink too much and cause harm to themselves, people who don't keep a healthy weight. We tended to follow America, and we don't want to go down that path in terms of, the majority of the population being overweight and the risk to their health that results from that. So there's a big shift. It's a big shift in people's behaviour, and that's quite a thing to hope to achieve.
Do you remember your first speech, and what was it like?
My first speech, yes, I do remember my first speech. I was a student at university, and it was the Guild of Students, which is like the Students' Union, and I just spoke in the general meeting. I remember it must have been in 1976 probably, and the Student Union, the Guild of Students at Exeter University, were debating a motion where the Students' Union instructed the American government to withdraw their troops from Angola, I think it was. And I thought this was rather absurd, so I made a speech about it. And I can remember all the way through the speech, my right leg shook. Fortunately now when I make speeches, my right leg has stopped shaking. But it's quite a long time ago, I'm afraid. It's 1976, a long way back.
How do you find representing our area?
Well, I love South Cambridgeshire. It's home, and that's always, very important. It's the people you know, the place you know. But of course, South Cambridgeshire, the beauty of it is, it's so full of interesting people. It's almost like any story you see nationally, you're quite likely to find somebody in Cambridgeshire, and often in my patch, who's right at the heart of it, because particularly if it's anything to do with knowledge and science and so on. It's like just the other day, do you remember there was that Raspberry Pi story, and suddenly it pops up, and it's the youngsters at Chesterton Community College who are showing it, and it's local scientists who developed it, and that happens all the time. So from my point of view, when I get involved in lots of issues, it can be a bit intimidating, because there tends to be like Nobel Prize winners who know about this stuff and things like that, and quite a lot of people in the constituency who take no prisoners when it comes to, they tell me very forcibly if they don't agree with me, and the arguments, they take them apart and try to, convince me, and that's absolutely fine. But I'd rather have that, because it's a lot of really good and interesting people around Cambridgeshire.
Do you have to sort of battle other ministers to, have your say?
Actually, to be fair, it's quite, yes, we have discussions, and they can be pretty robust discussions, but it's all kind of, we are actually friends. In weeks rather than months, got to a place where we felt we were, members of a team trying to achieve something together. I mean, the hard stuff in politics, I have to say, is the way in which, saving your presence, is the way in which the media behave, really, is the hardest part, is because, You know, they're not interested in the long term, they're interested in the here and now, and only the here and now. So you might have lots and lots of things that you think, if we do this now, we will have all these benefits. They're not interested in all those benefits, they're interested in the now. They're interested in the row, and very little in the substance. I wouldn't have a difficulty about the fact that there's people who want to have a debate and a disagreement and we'll debate the substance. But the way in which in the media it gets turned, the substance is never actually presented to the public. Actually, all they do is they go, well, here's a row, and this row is going to happen, and these people are against, you know, and they make it all personal.
Yeah.
And actually, from our point of view, it isn't personal. You know, even if I disagree with somebody, it doesn't mean I don't like them. But the media turn it into, oh, if you don't agree, then you're, you know, who's up, who's down, you're trying to do somebody else down, and it isn't actually like that.
How do you cope with all the criticism? I mean, for example, that time when that little old lady stopped you when you were on your way to Downing Street,
Have you looked at it on the film? Have you had a look at that?
I haven't personally, but
yeah, it's interesting. Have a look, because from my point of view, if you look, I didn't feel. I was just talking to her, and you know, I didn't really realise there was sort of, you know, cameras and all that stuff, because I was a bit nonplussed, because she was sort of saying, well, you want to privatise the NHS. So I said to her, no, I don't want to privatise. I'm not going to privatise the NHS. There's no plan for that. And then she said, you've been privatising the NHS since 1979. I thought, hello, I'm getting a bit confused here. I certainly haven't been doing any such thing. But she was very focused on, you know, every government, because she was against the Labour government. And it turned out, of course, I don't know who this lady was, but it turned out that she has been, you know, a campaigner against governments, be it Labour or Coalition or any Conservative, for decades. So, I mean, demonstrations against ministers have always happened and always will, you know, and that's part of, you know, our right to free speech.
Okay, so what's your advice to any politician that wants to like rise to top, and also any person like my age who's looking toward being a politician when they're older?
Well, on the latter part about whether to be in politics, if you have any doubt about whether it's the right thing, probably best not do it. Do it only if you're absolutely sure that you wouldn't really be able to live with yourself if you hadn't done this thing.
Yeah.
I think, but connected to the first question is, you know, they do say everybody who goes into Parliament imagines they're going to be Prime Minister one day, and 99.9% of them will not. So best not get too hung up with ambition too far, I think. I think what would... And there are people in politics who are there for the politics, and there are people in politics who are there for the policy, if you see what I mean. And my personal view is you will actually feel a much greater sense of fulfilment if you're there for what you can achieve rather than for the personal kind of, you know, fame or notoriety that you achieve. Because pretty much everybody in politics at some point, you can get to be well known. That's easy. Say the wrong thing, you're on the front page tomorrow. That's not hard.
Yeah.
So getting to be well known isn't the issue. And there is a tendency in a lot of society at the moment to say, well, celebrity is what it's all about. You just want to get well known and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's very easy, you know. To do the wrong thing, go to the wrong place, you know, that's very easy to get notorious. But fundamentally, I don't think that's remotely fulfilling. I think what is fulfilling, and what politics is actually about, is the opportunity to shape something. And it could be, you know, for Michael Gove, it'll be about academies and free schools in the sense of having shaped education for the future. For me, it's about the NHS and the opportunity for the NHS to be really reshaped for the 21st century. And others of my colleagues. And that's actually not just in my party, but of course it's in other parties, and people have different views about what it is they're trying to shape and how they want to shape it. But the sense that you've achieved something, I think, is actually, that's a better ambition to aim for,
Yeah.
because it's more likely to be fulfilled. It can be done as a backbench member of Parliament, as the leader of a council. I mean, there are leaders of councils in this country who actually, when you look at it, have shaped their community and their town, their city or their county more than practically any of the members of Parliament in their area would have done. So maybe focus on what is it really matters to you. Where do you have an idea about how you can make a really good difference to things? and then focus on that, because that probably will be more fulfilling in the long run.